Welcome to a new class. In order to have a deeper understanding of cryptocurrencies, we need to go back to where it started, when money was created. Do you know why money was created? Do you want to know something that very few people know how it works? First, let's look at what money actually is. We can define money as an asset with a neutral value, which serves as a form of exchange between two or more people. In order for the exchange to be fair and have no differences in value, several characteristics must be met. First of all, it must be an accepted means of payment to carry out an exchange, and at the same time be light and easy to store and transport. Can you imagine what it would be like to carry gold to the grocery store? Another concept, the unit of account, refers to the standard numerical monetary unit that is used to measure and compare the value of other goods. Imagine when we go to the supermarket, everything has a price, right? Finally, we have the value storage. Money allows us to store our wealth without it being lost over time. For example, let's imagine that instead of gold coins, we use apples as money. If you have 1,000 apples today, you may have a good economic capacity, but what will happen when your apples rot? At this point, you'll have lost all your money because no one will accept rotten apples. Therefore, using apples as money wouldn't allow us to preserve the value over time, and therefore couldn't be a store of value. So, how did people trade before money existed? If we go back in history, people exchanged valuables according to their needs, through a practice known as barter or trade. This system worked very well in the beginning. However, it was not a long-lasting system because of the problems when it came to deciding terms and conditions. Imagine you're a farmer and you farm potatoes. With those potatoes, you go to the local market looking to exchange them for milk. But what would happen if the farmer who is selling the milk doesn't have enough milk? Or the farmer who has milk wants tomatoes? What options do you have if your needs don't meet? Money was created to solve these problems as a means of exchange with a common value for the whole society. This way, the farmer would exchange his potatoes for money, giving him the possibility to buy other products. This is how money was born, creating the first gold coins, considered as a valuable asset that could be kept to be exchanged later without losing the initial value. Once gold coins were created and established as money, some problems related to their supply arose. Let's go back to ancient Greece, where there were many wars and large constructions, which meant a very high expenditure. For example, if they collected 1,000 gold coins but had an expense of 2,000 coins, what did the government do to be able to pay? Gold is limited, so they could not create more gold coins to be able to cover the money deficit. So they began to mix gold coins with copper coins. This way, the currency began to devaluate, as they were not really gold coins anymore, but smaller gold portions mixed with other metals that were less valuable. What was the consequence of this devaluation of money? As a consequence of that loss of value, people only traded with the mixed gold and copper coins, keeping the gold coins to preserve the value. Today, gold is still a value reference for the economy, since it fulfills perfectly the conditions of money and medium of exchange. Let's remember that the problem was not the gold itself, but the problem came with the mix of metals. Humanity has gone through many financial systems throughout history, until today, where gold has been gradually replaced by the dollar, and now by cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. The dollar was originally born to be a receipt for gold, since people started to keep gold in banks, where they had it safe and controlled to avoid the risk of theft. At that time, the dollar had a good purchasing power and the economy worked perfectly, until, as in ancient Greece, great expenses arose for the government. In the case of the United States, it was the First World War. As the country was at war, industries were focused on manufacturing weapons and ammunition, so the state had to buy everything that was no longer produced in other countries. So spending skyrocketed. Something similar to the previous example of ancient Greece. Remember? Impressive, isn't it? Now we'll continue studying the role of money by learning what the gold standard is. To understand this concept, let's take a look back at the Second World War, where for some time the United States was non-belligerent in this war. As a result, the United States was able to supply products and services to the vast majority of countries involved in the war. At that time, the United States began to accept payments in gold, managing to accumulate 2/3 of all the world's gold and thus becoming the world's leading economic power. But what were the consequences for the world economy? By the end of the war, the world's monetary system was traded on a single currency, the dollar, and thus became the backing for all the world's currencies. This gave the United States complete power over the world's economy, as they could print new dollars, which was the backing for any currency. But this situation also brought problems to the currency itself. What problems did this new world standard have for the dollar? The devaluation of the currency was so great that we went from initially claiming 1 ounce of gold per dollar to, after the hyperinflation, having to pay over $12 to receive that same ounce of gold. Countries quickly realized the situation and decided to claim the gold to which they were entitled by returning the dollars they had in reserve. The government of the United States was then forced to make a decision. Either they paid back the gold they accumulated, or they, by abandoning this reserve system, the value of money came to be based on the faith we have in the body that regulates this asset, rather than the gold itself. This is how fiat money was born. This way, the money we use today has its value in the trust we have when making a purchase. We all trust that our money will be accepted when we go to buy bread, don't we? Money is still being printed today, further increasing the value problem we saw when we abandoned the gold standard. As a consequence, our purchasing power falls, making us need even more capital to buy the same things we could buy years ago with less money. Let's look at this with an example. Let's imagine that last year you could buy a loaf of bread for €1. As a consequence of the decrease in the value of money, today you went to the bakery and that same loaf of bread had a price of €1.10. What happened? This phenomenon is known as loss of purchasing power. With the same amount of money you used to buy bread last year, you cannot make the same purchase today. This is where we should be thinking, how can a country solve this problem? The same problem we find when buying bread can be translated to a wider central body such as a country, where we can now see how the current financial and monetary system is doomed to fail if it takes the courses it's taken these past 100 years. And that's why cryptocurrencies emerge, highlighting the waves ecosystem. The decentralization that cryptocurrencies offer means that no one will have to decide where budgets will be allocated, as this will be decided by the people. Money will not be created limitlessly, and will follow unbreakable rules that will ensure our assets will maintain their value over time. The role of banks will become secondary, as it will be the community that will assume the role of traditional banks, offering loans at a much lower interest rate, for example. Who wouldn't like all this? These are just some advantages of cryptocurrencies such as waves. I look forward to seeing you in the next class, where we will learn how monetary policies work and their impact on our economy.